I'm so excited and I can't wait to show you how to make this complete dashboard. So let's dive in. Alright, let's have a look at what we're going to cover during this section. First, I'll talk you through the file and the key drivers that sit behind the file. Then we'll go about creating the calculations for the dashboard. One of the things I've harped on about during this series is the importance of creating flexible calculations. You'll see when we get into creating your dashboard that this is probably the most important thing to create a dashboard. If you set the file up correctly and you go create your calculations, you'll see that you have to create them so they've got layers inside of them. So every element that you want to spin your dashboard on has to be included in a range of calculations. So let's have a look now. This is the final product that we'll create. Notice that it's symmetrical. We've got it split into 4 parts. And I've tried to sort of align things so that the tables at the bottom are aligned with the charts at the top. And we've got various elements that are all lined up. But once again, I've used a reasonably simple color scheme. There are only 2 or 3 colors like shades of green and red colors, and that's it. It's very easy on the eye, and you can see up here we've got our drop-down countries and years. So I'll show you how to put both of those together. So let's go about creating our dashboard. Are you ready? So let's have a look at the file that sits behind it so that we can start our work. Looking forward to this one, so let's go! Alright, so the first sheet in the file is called List, and this sheet is for all you lookup tables for any list that you may want to draw on or just information that you might want to update data on a regular basis. The first column is a list of 20 countries, the second column is the region, and the third column is the years. So we'll be using this in some capacity with the combo boxes. If you click on the name box, you will see that I've created 2 ranges, country and region. Creating a range of cells is very easy. You simply go to the Formulas tab, Name Manager button, New, and here you highlight the cells on the range, and you also insert a name. The Name Manager in Excel is a powerful tool for creating references to certain cells and ranges. Okay? Nice. Let's click on the Social Data sheet. Now, this has information like our social media campaigns. How many people are going on to various platforms? Now, as the market shifts away from sort of print media into more of a social media, we need to keep track of this so we can work out where our spending is best used. If there's more eyes going on social media than there are in traditional forums, then we might want to spend some of our expenses, our marketing expenses, in these areas. So that's why it's important these days to keep track of where you've got an online presence. I've got a search engine area over here where we've got some search engines and browsers that are used as well. That's also important for advertising purposes and marketing purposes. Let's move on. This is the main sheet. It's called Finance Data, and this is where we've got the bulk of our data. Now, I've created an American company and we've got revenues for 4 years and expenses for 4 years. This section here is for our revenues, and this section here is for our expenses. In this column, we've got our late debtors. This is important to keep track of in any business because you want to know if there's a problem with late debtors in any particular office, because this is your money coming in basically. This will determine whether you can pay your staff, pay your suppliers, and so on and so forth. So that's important. Here we've got an FTE, or full-time equivalent count, so we can keep track of how many staff we have in each of our offices. The calculation of full-time equivalent FTE is an employee's scheduled hours divided by the employer's hours for a full-time work week. When an employer has a 40-hour work week, employees are scheduled to work 40 hours per week, or 1.0 FTEs. Employees scheduled to work 20 hours per week are 0.5 FTEs. And this column is the percentage in relation to the total of the country. And then I've got a section where I rank this because we're going to look at things in our calculations table by states and by region. So it is in the West, it is in the Northeast, and so on and so forth. So we're going to be ranking them because in the final dashboard, there's a top 10 and a top 5. There are 4 regions inside of the model, which means there are more than 10 states per region. So it's just a summary of the top 5 and top 10. And we're going to need to rank though. So that's been done in this sheet. Alright, let's click on the calculation sheet. And this is the most important worksheet of our dashboard. Here we will use our formulas knowledge to fill in the calculations. And there's more than enough for you to do to populate all these tables down here. So basically our top 10 buyer revenue, our top 10 buyer expenses, FTE, and late debt will isolate some of that information. And then we'll go on and grab some social media information and a search engine, our browser information for our marketing purposes. There are 4 functions that we are going to use the most in the calculation sheet: SUMIFS, SUMPRODUCT, INDEX, and MATCH. That's why I insist on learning these functions in and out. Alrighty, I'll go on to the dashboard sheet. And this is obviously our dashboard, and yes, we will create it from scratch. We will see that only these elements of the dashboard will get populated as we fill in our calculations table. Before I start explaining the elements that we are going to build in the dashboard, I want to talk about these icons. So these are graphics that I took from canva.com. Canva is a free-to-use online graphic design tool, and you can use it to create social media posts, presentations, posters, videos, logos, and more. And most of the features are free, so a great solution to enrich your dashboard. In these 4 tables, we will make some calculations. And in the trend column, we will create sparklines. In the revenue by state area, we will make a clustered column chart combined with line with markers. And in the same chart here, inside the travel expenses by state area. Inside the top 5 revenue, we will make a pie chart. Also 2 bar charts there and there. Other charts that we are going to create are a column chart here, 2 bar charts here, and a beautiful donut chart down there. I think I didn't forget something regarding charts. All these charts are reasonably straightforward and for your most intermediate of Excel users. So in my opinion, the real work and real definition in any model comes in the build of the calculations engine. If you can build robust, flexible calculations on page, you'll be able to create a very flexible dashboard sheet or output sheet. So that's what we're going to be primarily focused on. Alright, let's get cracked. Let's go on to the calculations worksheet. What we're going to do first of all is we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at what rank we have in this consolidated area here. These numbers are just sequential numbers. It just says 1, 2, 3, up to 10. So on this big table here, we are going to calculate these columns. This table has the top 10 for all regions, basically the Midwest, the Northeast, the South, and the West. So it plucks out the top 10 based on its revenue. Now we need a couple of criteria in order to score this first formula in cell C2. In simple words, we will look at the financial worksheet and we will find which state has the largest revenue for the year 2023, okay? We will use the combination of the 3 functions to build this formula: index, match, and large. It is a very important formula because we are using 2 criteria to return a text field with calculations. We could just use a sum is or a sum product, but this is to return text, so it's a bit more difficult. Alright, so let's get cracking with the first formula. Let's put our cursor into C2 and type equal index open parenthesis. The first part is an index formula. And there's going to be two main parts to the formula, an index first, a match second. Inside match we will use the large function. And the first part of an index formula is the result part. So what state do we want? So we move to the finance data sheet and we click into B2. Control Shift and down arrow to the bottom of the range and it's just B2 to B51. Of course you can type this range or you can start from the top to the bottom. I like to use shortcuts. I like Control and Shift and arrows to highlight as many cells at once, but it's up to you. We press F4 to lock the cell range, and now we'll type a comma and we'll type the word match. Open a bracket and type large. Open parentheses, and what do we want? We want the state with the largest revenue of the year 2023. So highlight the cells from G2 to G51. Press F4 to lock the cell range and type a comma. The second argument of the large function is to rank the numeric value of what you would like returned. Of course we want the top one state, so click cell A2, press F4 3 times to lock the column, close parentheses. The lookup array in the match function is the range from G2 to G51. Press F4 again to lock this range, and we want the exact match, so type 0. Close parentheses to close the match function, and another parentheses to close the index function. Enter. Wow, no errors. And the result is California. Let's return to the financial data, and with a quick glance, California has the largest revenue. Okay, back to calculations. What we've got now is I can see all the regions in front of me and I can see the result. We'll copy this down. California is the first slate. We'll just copy the formula down. And you'll notice that the 10th item in this list is Colorado. So we've gotten unique items and they correspond with our states. Alright? Okay, now we're going to be using that repeatedly. Now, what we need to do is we need to create a sum formula for our revenue in 2020, and we will create a SUMIFS formula. Cursor into cell D2 and let's type equal SUMIFS, and we'll open a bracket. The first part is our sum range. The sum range the cells from D2 to D51 from finance data. So let's click into D2. Control Shift down arrow. We'll press F4 once, twice because I want to lock in those rows, and we type a comma. And now it's our criteria. The criteria range first, the states. Let's click into B2. Control Shift down arrow. We'll press F4 once to lock in the cell range, and we type a comma again. Now we type C2. It's our criteria one, and we'll press F4 3 times, so it locks the column but not the row. Notice how careful I am with the relative and absolute references. And you should do also, because if you're going to copy the formula down and across, the numbers must be correct. So pay attention to the dollar signs in the absolute reference topic in general. That's why I have a separate lecture for this topic. Okay, let's move on. Close parenthesis. If I hit enter, we should get the information that we need. Very cool. We'll copy this down and we get the information for the revenue for the year 2020, so these specific states. and we copy all of this across. Alright, so those two formulas, the index match formula and the SUMIFS formula, are very important because we are going to use those over and over again. The key to creating some of the good tables is to create a formula that you can use continually. You could save yourself a lot of time. Now I don't have to write this formula again, you just need to get it right one time. So the next step is to calculate the states with the most expenses for the year 2023 and put the result here in column H. So we'll copy this formula here from cell C2 and we'll paste it over here where the state is, in cell H2. I might actually make a slight adjustment to it and see how it goes. So let's move over to the finance data. As you can see, the expenses for 2023 are in range K2 to K51, so all I have to do is to modify the array of the formula. Let's return to calculations and let's double click. Okay, I'll click the cell range from G2 to K2 and from G51 to K51. The same here. Enter. Alright, let's copy the formula down. Great. Let's do exactly the same thing for our SUMIFS formula. I'll copy cell D2 and I'll paste it here in cell I2. If you look at the finance data, the expenses for the year 2020 are in column H. So let's double click the formula in the calculation sheet to make some changes. The first change is the cell range. So this is H2 to H51. Second, I'll move California. You can see as you hover over it that the color changes just slightly. That's when you can grab and hold it, so you can move it over to California. Enter. And there you go. So we should be able to copy that across and down. Very cool. Let's move on to calculate the states based on FTE count. If you look again at the financial data, we will calculate the top 10 states based on the column M and specifically based on the cell range M2 to M51. We will use exactly the same method. Copy the cell H2 and paste it into cell M2. Now double click to change the cell range and make the necessary adjustments, okay? So this is M2 to M51. This is also M2 to M51. And this is cell A2 because we want the state with the largest staff FTE count. Enter. Pretty straightforward, right? And Massachusetts is the state with the largest staff. And if we move on to financial data, we can see that this is true. Nice. Nice. Copy the formula down and we are done. It should be getting a bit more proficient as we go on with this. Alright, so let's do the same thing with our formulation for our FTEs. To calculate FTE, we will use SUMIFS. Let's copy the first cell I2 from the prior table and paste it into the first FTE cell record. Double click, the cell range is correct. It's M2 to M51. Let's move the state. And press enter. And let's fill that down. Okay, this is our final table for this particular part of the top. So we copy in Massachusetts from the staff column and we paste it in column O. if we look at the financial data, the cell range that we are interested in this one in column L, the late debtors. Let's double click the formula. Okay, this is L2 to L51. Also, this is L2 to L51. Nice. And this is always cell A2. Enter. The state with the largest late debtors is Nevada. We'll copy that down, Arizona at the bottom. Let's copy our SUMIFS formula from the first cell of the FTE column and paste it here in cell P2. But you might change the formatting. First off, let's go over and just turn that into a percentage. You might change it into 1 decimal place because this will flow through to our chart. Now what we want to do is exactly the same thing, so double-click the cell and move the cell that's over Massachusetts into Nevada, and change the cell range from L2 to L51. Let's fill that down. Pretty happy with that. All good. One last thing. Often we encounter the need to show numbers in the scale of thousands or millions, represented as K and M respectively. This practice proves helpful when showing data on charts and carries substantial significance within financial reports, amplifying comprehension and insights. These numbers are big enough to use them in our dashboard, so I suggest to convert them into thousands by dividing the formulas by 1000. This is easy to do. Double-click the first cell and divide all the formula by 1000. It's like dividing the result by 1000. Let's do the same with all these numbers. Cool. So as you can see, we used to formula and we just represented it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and it gave us some summaries for our revenue, expenses, FTE, and last of all, debt. All good. Okay, let's crack on. Right, what we want to do is a little easier. All we want to do is pull out the revenue and the expenses for any given year. Now, firstly, we want the top 5 states in terms of revenues, and this is the easy part. So put your cursor in cell N14 and let's type in equals. And we just want to pluck out the name of the first cell, so let's click into cell C2. And then let's just copy down until row 18. So just grab the top 5. Now our revenue for the year 2020, this is a little more complex, but less complex than the priority formula that we came up with. We're just going to use an HLOOKUP function. We're going to look it up this year, so the year is 013, and we're going to return that based on the state name. So on the table over here. Let's put your cursor in 014 and we'll type equals HLOOKUP and open a bracket. Now, horizontal lookup. The first part is a bit like a VLOOKUP. What criteria are you looking at? Well, we're looking at 013, which is our year, so we type 013, and we'll press F4 once and twice. Why? Because we want to lock row 13 when we will copy this formula, okay? Type a comma. Now, what's the lookup array that we're looking at for it in? So we go over to your table, which starts in the year 2020 for our revenue, and we copy everything down for 5 rows. You can see the 5 just there. So to row 6 and press F4 once to lock the range. Alright, now we want to start in the first row and come down 1 row. So that's row 2. And look at these numbers that we've got over here. They're going to help us. So we type a comma and just click the number 2. we might lock in that particular column A. So press F4 3 times. So it should say $A3. Now we type a comma and 0 for false. And we close our bracket and press enter. So we should get 1,788. Let's fill that formula down. Just double click the corner here. Let's fix the formatting. 1,000 separators and 0 decimals. 934 for Florida. Just check the information. Yes, 934 here and 934 also here. All good. Now, there will be some students who will ask me, why Andreas, why don't you use XLOOKUP instead of HLOOKUP? Well, the answer is simple. You don't all have the newer version of Excel 365 or Excel 2019. This course is addressed to all students, not just those with the newer Excel version. Despite this, I want to take some time and show you the XLOOKUP version. Here's the replacement for the formula using XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP offers more flexibility and clarity compared to HLOOKUP. Let's do a quick explanation. Cell O13 remains the lookup value similar to HLOOKUP. Cell range D1 to G6 is the table array containing the data to be searched just like an HLOOKUP. Cell A3 specifies the return column index indicating which column from the table array to return data from. It's the same as the range index argument in HLOOKUP. The not found argument replaces the range lookup argument in HLOOKUP. It specifies what to return if the lookup value is not found in the table array. In this case, it returns the text not found. You can change this to a different text message or an error code. So, another formula to use if you want. Let's move on. And let's do exactly the same thing for our expenses. Put your cursor in P14 and type equals, and just point to the cell in H2, which is California. Enter. Because we've already built a table, we should be able to fill that down. Just double click on this square and it fills down 5 rows. Now let's see if we can use this formulation of O14 cell just here in the same way we did previously with our index, match, or SUMIFS formulas. So copy the cell O14 and just paste it into Q14. Alright, double click on the formula. Now we just need to move this formulation from here to cover our expenses table. So we'll just move the red table across carefully. And we should just press enter. So it should be 1090, and it is. So we'll just pull that down, and that's the first part of our equation. Very cool. We've got all of our revenue, we've got our top 10, and we've got our top 5 revenue and expenses. So that's great. All good. Alright, so moving right along, what we want to do here is to get an indication of what proportion our revenue is over our expenses. So we want to have a high proportion of our revenue and a lower proportion of our expenses. Obviously, it has an indirect and direct effect on the position of our company. Let's have a look at what we might do to do that. And this is just an indicative number, it's not exact, okay? We're just going to create shippers. Cursor on cell D14, we'll just type equal sum, open a bracket. And we're just going to sum up the top 10 states for the year 2020. And as I said, this is just indicative. So just sum the numbers above here and copy it across all the years because these two tables replicate. We'll copy that formulation and paste it over there to calculate also our expenses. Now what we want to do is we'll put our cursor in D15 and we'll type equals the cell above, so cell D14. Divide by, and open a bracket. Now we want to sum up D14 plus the expenses for that year, so plus I14. And we'll close the bracket, and that will give us a percentage. Let's format this number as a percentage with the percent style button. So it's saying that our revenue is a lot higher than our expenses. We'll copy that across. Now for our expenses, this is just the opposite of that number. We'll put our cursor in I-15 and we'll say equals 1 minus the cell in D15. And that should give us 100% for both. So 59 and 41 is 100, which is good. Let's copy that across. And finally, what we want to do is we want to pull the information for the relevant year. So we need another HLOOKUP formula. Let's put our cursor in cell O21, type equals HLOOKUP, and open the bracket. What's the value we're looking up? We're looking up to the year 2020 in cell O20. So we might press F4 twice. We lock in row 20 and we type a comma. And now we'll just cover the table that we're interested in. This is the table of revenues, cells from D13 to G15. I'll press F4 once, type a comma. The row index number is 3 because we want to come down 1, 2, 3 rows. Again, comma. Now type 0 for an approximate match. And then we close our bracket and enter. And that will give us the result, the percentage revenue for year 2020. I'll just fix the formatting up. So I'll just hit the percentage symbol up there. And you'll see that we get our 59% flowing through over here, okay? For our expenses, just copy that formulation down. And we'll just double click on the formula. Everything is okay except where this table is pointing to. So just move it across so it covers our expenses and we should get the 41%. Keep in mind that the year 2020, cell O20, is connected with the dashboard as you can see. Okay? So if I change the year on the dashboard, the calculations also changes. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, so we're about halfway through now. Halfway through our calculations table. For our region, what I want here is I want the exact numbers to flow through. And the only way I can get that, because the information in the calculations cheat sheet is only partial, is I'll have to go into our social data sheet. So we need to have a look at where our regions equals in the West and where our year equals 2020. Let's put our cursor in cell D18 and I will type equals SUMIFS and make sure you've got the S at the end. Open a bracket. Now let's go into our financial data. Now we're starting with our revenues, which occurs in cell D2. Press Ctrl Shift down arrow and then press F4 once, twice so it locks in those particular rows. We'll type a comma. And now we want to look in cell C2 because we're looking for the region. And then we want to press Ctrl Shift down arrow. This time press F4 one time. To get back to the calculation sheet, I just type a comma and then I type B18 and I'll press F4 once. And that takes me back into the sheet that I need to be into. It wasn't B18, it was C18. So I can then just pull it across. And with my cursor here, I might want to press F4 once, twice, so it says $C18. And that should be it. I'll close my bracket and I'll press enter. Alright. With the formula the way that it is, we just need to divide that by 1,000. I don't want big numbers in my dashboard. It's difficult to read them. All good? Good. Okay, now because these cells are sequential, what I mean by that is year 2020, 2021, 2022, etc. We should be able to copy this down and across, okay? All the information is moving quite nicely across the screen. It's not necessary to create from scratch the SUMIFS formula for the expenses of regions again. What we might do is I might copy the first cell for the year 2020, so cell D18, and paste it here into cell I18. Now double-click the formula so that we can make the necessary changes for the expenses. First, I can repoint it to the west. Press Enter. Nice. I want to change the first part of the SUMIFS formula, which is the sum range, and move to Finance Data Worksheet. As you can see, the sum range now is cells H2 to H51. Okay? Return to Calculation Sheet and double-click the formula again. So this is H2 to H51. Press Enter. Copy the formula across and down. Excellent. Okay, so there's how you get away without writing in a second formula. And if you're doing it in real time, it happens very quickly, alright? So, for our social data, which is our next table, I'll just make the cursor up. In my wisdom, I forgot to put the years in here, so you can write 2020, 21, 22, etc. in there, or we'll just copy these cells here. So just highlight this table from 2020 to 2023. Press Ctrl+C. Right-click in cell C24 and paste Special Transpose. So we'll transpose those down and click OK. Now we just need to clean up the formatting. I'll just change that to black text, takes the color off, and Ctrl+B to take the bold off. All good. Alright, now we need to go into our social data and we need to grab our country and our year and return hits on Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. So we need two criteria. We'll use SUMIFS again with two criteria. The first criterion is going to be the countries, and the second criterion is going to be the years. Notice here that the country cells are connected with the dashboard, so if I change the country from here, it will automatically change to the countries in these cells here. Let's put our cursor in cell D24. We'll type equals SUMIFS, open a bracket. And we'll go into the social data sheet and we'll start first with cell C2, which is the Facebook column. Press Ctrl-Shift down arrow to highlight all the cell range. We'll press F4 once, twice so that it locks in those rows. This is the sum range. We type a comma and we will go from left to right. So we'll take our country data, I'll click into cell A2, Ctrl-Shift down arrow. And I'll press F4 just once this time, and this is the criteria range 1. Type comma again. And now I want to go back into the calculation sheet. So I'll type B24 and I'll press F4. That looks like that's right. We will press F4 twice more. So it's $B24. Type a comma. We go back into the social data sheet and click into cell B2. Press Ctrl-Shift down arrow. Press F4 to lock in the range B2 to B81. Type comma again. Now type C24 and F4 once, twice, 3 times. So it says $C24. Close our bracket and we'll press Enter. Great! Let's copy that formula down and all the way across. We'll just fix up the average visit duration. I'll click the comma style button to change that to be a better formatting. I might change to the average visitors per day as well. 1 decimal here is great. They're all whole numbers. Alright, So now there's just a couple more tables to populate. There's search engines and browsers. So let's put our cursor into C30 and we'll type equals SUMIFS. Now let's take note of where these cells are. The first cell, our year, is in C29, and our search engine is in cell B30. So we'll go into our social data worksheet and we'll highlight from N2 to N13. That's our range. And we'll press F4 once. That locks the specific range, and we'll type a comma. And we'll highlight the years from cell L2 to L13. And we'll press F4 once, and that will lock that in. Now type a comma again, and we type C29 and press F4, comma. And the second criteria is our search engine, so let's go back into the social data. Click into cell M2 and highlight everything to cell M13. Press F4 once. Type a comma once again and type B30 and press F4 once, twice, 3 times. So we lock in the columns. Now let's close our bracket and press Enter. We'll copy that down. All good. Okay, so let's do exactly the same thing for our browser information. We'll put our cursor into F30 and we'll type equals SUMIFS and we'll open a bracket. Now we do much of the same thing. The sum range is from the social data sheet from cells Q2 to Q17, and we'll press F4 once. We'll type a comma. The first criteria range is for the years, so from 02 to 017. Press F4 and type a comma. And once again, the first criteria are cell F29 from the calculations worksheet. Let's press F4. We'll type a comma and we'll go back into our social data. And we'll grab our browser information. So let's highlight the cells from P2 to P17. This is the second criteria range. Press F4 once again to lock the cell range and comma again. For the second criteria, we type E30 and we'll press F4 once, twice, 3 times. We'll close our bracket and we'll press Enter. Copy the formulation down, and the sum total of these cells is 100%. That's the last table we needed to create. Welcome back, everybody. So in the previous lessons, we finished all the calculations, which is the tricky part when we create a dashboard. If we have correct results in our calculations, if we have flexible calculations, then the charts and the elements on the dashboard are going to be correct and to the point. Let's go and have a look at what our dashboard looks like. Alright, here is the title of the dashboard, and a small logo or icon if you prefer. Right here we have the 2 drop-down cells, one for the country and one for the year. It's super easy to create a drop-down cell using data validation, and I don't want to waste your time on how to create them, but if you have questions, please let me know in the Q&A section. I take countries and years from the list worksheet, okay? I would like to start with these 4 sections: revenue by geographical region, website tracking overview, expense by geographical region, social media campaigns. All these numbers are already populated from the calculation sheet that you can see here in the formula bar. Also in these 4 columns, the states are derived from the calculations. The first thing I want to do is to use Sparklines to show the trend of these metrics. Let's start with the revenue by region. I will first highlight the cells that I'll put in the Sparklines from H32 to H35. Go to Insert tab. select the Column Sparkline. Here is the small dialog box. The data ranges from D32 to G35. The location range is already filled and correct, so let's press OK. Cool. Our trend is already shown up. Good stuff. We will follow exactly the same steps for the other 3 sections. Highlight the cells from expense by geographical region. Insert Column Sparkline. The date range is from D40 to G43. Okay, and let's move on to Website Tracking Overview section. I'll create the Column Sparkline here following the same steps. Let's walk through them quickly. Alright, and the same here, social media campaigns. Good stuff. I tend to use colors that have a uniformity throughout the dashboard, so I prefer to change the color of the sparklines to a dark green. Cool. The next step is to create a chart that will represent revenue by the state. I want to represent graphically the revenue by each state for the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023. Alright, the best solution for that metric is to use a clustered column chart in combination with a line chart with markers. So I will create a combo chart, okay? So let's first highlight the data for this chart. From the calculations worksheet, we want the revenue by state, so cells C2 to C11. Now press Ctrl, and for the years 2022 and 2023, highlight cells F2 to G11. Leave the Control key and click to Insert tab. From the Recommended Charts button, click the All Charts tab and then Combo Charts. Series 1 is the year 2022 and Series 2 is the year 2023. I prefer Series 2 to be a clustered column chart and Series 1 to be a line chart with markers. Nice. Press OK. Let's move the chart into Dashboard. I will resize it to fit in this area. Now it's time to change the format and the design. Let's delete the chart title and the vertical axis to save some space. I'll also delete the horizontal grid lines. Okay, now I will move the legend to the top right corner of the chart. Right-click on the legend, and select the top right as the legend position. And now I can zoom in on the graph by dragging the right side. Yes, this is better. The text direction of the states is horizontal, but I have to make the font smaller to make it look better. Now, right-click on the Series 2 columns and select the Format Data Series. From Series Options, change the gap width to maybe 30%. Yes, 30% is great. From the bucket icon, I will change the fill color to a dark green. Next, I'm going to add labels to these bars with each revenue. Right-click on any of these bars and add data labels. It's better to move the labels inside the bars, So right-click, Format Data Labels, and choose the inside base position. I will change the font color to a white one. I think I finished with Series 2, which is the year 2023. Later we will change the name of the series to years. Let's move on to the line chart with markers. Right-click on the line and select the Format Data series. I don't want lines between markers, so I choose no line here. Okay? Also, from Market Options, I will change the color to a red one. Also to the border. And from Market Options, I will change the size of the marker to 12. Right-click again to any marker and add data labels. From Format Data Labels, I will change the position above the markers. Nice. I think it looks much better than the first version of the chart. It's time to change the names of Series 1 and Series 2. From the Chart Design tab, press the Select Data button. Let's click Edit for Series 1. As the series name, I will choose F1 cell from Calculation Sheet. And as Series 2, I will choose G1 cell, also from Calculations. Finally, remove the border and fill out the chart. Amazing, right? Now this is the fun part. I will use the same chart for the travel expenses by state. So let's copy the chart and paste it here. Okay, I will resize it a bit. The only thing I have to change is Data Source from Select Data dialog box. Alright, let's start first with the year 2022. Edit. As series name, I will click cell K1 from Calculations. As series values, I will highlight cells K2 to K11. I'll do the same steps for the year 2023. This is L1, and these are cells L2 to L11. Also, I will change the states for expenses. Edit and highlight H2 to H11. Now let's begin by creating a pie chart right here. For the top 5 revenue and expenses by state, we will take the data from this small table from the Calculations worksheet. This is a straightforward chart without complex steps. Let's highlight cells N21 to O22. From our Insert tab, choose a 2-dimensional pie chart, and let's cut and paste our pie chart into Dashboard exactly in this area here. I will resize it and put it there. Delete the chart title. Okay. It's time to add data labels. Right-click on the chart and add labels. I'll make them white. Nice. I prefer to change the color of the revenue to a green one. So I'll click twice on the highlight only this pie and select this color green. Remove the border and fill of the pie chart. Ready. To graphically represent revenue and expenses, we will create two bar charts. Let's return to the calculation sheet. Let's highlight first the top 5 revenue states and their values. So cell range from N14 to O18. Insert tab bar chart. Delete chart title, horizontal axis, and vertical grid lines. Let's move the chart to our dashboard and place it here. Now we need to flip the chart vertically so California will be first. This is easy. Right-click the axis, then Format Axis. And check this box, Categories in reverse order. I don't need the axis anymore. Delete. It's time to change the gap width of the bars. 30% is fine. It's revenue, so I'll change the color to green and add labels to the bars with the revenue values. I will center the labels and change the size and color. Finally, remove the border and fill of the chart. Alright, you don't have to start creating the same chart from scratch for the expenses. All you have to do is copy, paste, and change the data. So let's do it. Copy, paste, and move it somewhere there. First, select the chart, and from Chart Design, press the Select Data button. Alright, let's change the Series one. Edit. The expense values are from Q14 to Q18. Now edit the states. The top 5 expense states are from P14 to P18. A faster and less detailed way to highlight the date range is from Chart Data Range. You can use any of these two ways you want. It's up to you. Okay? Done. I will change the color of expenses to red. Let's move on to top 5 late debt and FTE by state. I'm going to use exactly the same charts like I did previously for these two metrics. So I will be smart and copy, for example, the revenue chart and paste it over here. Let's resize it. Now, the crucial step is to change the data correctly so that the chart will show the top 5 states with the largest percentage of late debt. Chart Design, select Data. The chart data range is from O2 to P6. Keep in mind that we want the top 5 states, not top 10. Press OK. Excellent. Let's change the color of the bars to a dark green. Copy-paste this chart to create this state's FTE count. Select data, and the chart data ranges from M2 to N6. Okay, green color for this metric. For the search engine use, I will use a simple column chart. Return to calculations. Highlight the cell range from B30 to C32. Insert tab and select the first column chart. Delete chart title, grid lines, horizontal and vertical axis, and move the chart to the dashboard. Okay, now add labels to the chart. From Format Data Labels pane, click the Labels option. I also want the category name, but without the comma separator. I prefer space. Cool. Decrease gap width of the bars to 30%. If you want, you can change the color. Let's remove fill and border. The last chart I want to create is a donut chart that will show the percentage of each browser. Let's return to calculations. Highlight the browser and the percentages. From Insert tab, select the donut chart. Delete the chart title to save some space. Alright, let's move the chart to the reports page. Somewhere there. Okay? Perfect. It's time for some format. Move the legend to the right. I want to decrease the donut hole size to 50%. And let's add the percentages as labels. Add white font color. I can also increase the size of the chart. That's better. Some last changes. Remove the border and fill. I want to show you how easily you can change the colors of the donut. From Chart Design, click the Change Colors button and set a monochromatic palette, like with shades of green. Congratulations, you have done a great job. Let's try these two drop-down cells and see if they're working. If I change the country as these values are changing accordingly, and if I change the year, the charts also change. Good stuff. Alright, so we've got quite a lot of information around revenue, expenses, we've got our late debt, and FTE information by state. Now what we want to do is we want to create some conditional formatting that says, these years here, do they match the cells in T2? And if it does, can you please highlight our table in that particular year? So we'll put our cursor in D31, and we'll just highlight the numbers in our revenue table. So just highlight all of the data in this table. Now I'll click on the home screen, and we'll choose conditional formatting. For this one, we want a new rule. And we want to use a formula to determine which cells to format. It's a reasonably simple formula. We'll type equals. We want to point to cell D29. But we want to lock in that particular row, so we press F4. Now we'll type equals T2 and press F4 once to lock in the cell utterly and absolutely. Alright. Okay, so we can just click on the format button, and for our font I will choose a white font. So down here under color I will choose white, and once that's chosen I choose my fill, and I'll choose a fill. And I want to choose a fill that's in line with the color that I've used for my banners, which is green. So it is this last dark green one in this range. Click OK, and then it gives you a preview of what that's going to look like. And we'll say, okay, that's fine. And we'll notice that 2020 is highlighted. Alright, so I don't have to do that 4 times. Let's copy that range, so Control C. Now put your cursor into cell D39, right click your mouse and paste Special. Choose Formats and click OK. Alright, let's see if we can replicate that over here. Right click, paste Special, Formats, and click OK. I might format through the middle up, so I'm highlighting the average visitors per day, and then just choose 2 decimal places. Maybe 1 decimal is better. Alright, copy that again, highlight the last table, right click, paste Special, Formats, click OK. So all of the 4 tables have 2020 highlighted. We'll just run a test. Let's change the year from T2 cell. Now how cool is that? All of these tables seem to be working quite nicely. This particular dashboard is going to be one of my favorites. It follows a lot of the rules that you need to follow in creating easy to look at dashboards. It's aligned. You'll notice that all of these tables are aligned against one another both vertically and horizontally. I've chosen a pretty simple color scheme. I've just chosen shades of green and a kind of red color. So there's only really 2-3 colors in a whole dashboard. I think it looks quite good. It's highly interactive. You've got the capacity to sum by country, your social media data, you've got FTE information, you've got your late debit information. And it can all be moved and changed. It can even change by year, just at the touch of a button. So it's pretty easy to look at. I hope you've gotten a lot out of it. I absolutely love presenting this sort of stuff. It gives you the chance to create sort of flexible Excel spreadsheets which show a lot of relevant information to organizations in a very small amount of space. Thank you very much everyone, and see you next time. Bye.